back to the Emerald Coast Science Center. So my name is Kiana, I'm an educator here, and today we're going to be doing a video about some of our robots that we have here at the center. So before I give you some examples of robots that we have, I kind of wanted to do a little bit of a blurb on what robots are. So robots are basically machines that we have designed to help us to complete a series of complex tasks. So they basically help us to do everyday things as well as bigger picture things that maybe we can't do or we don't want to do, or that they can just do more efficiently. And so some examples of times that we've used robots in our everyday lives that you might not think about. We've got washing machines at our house. Those are examples of robots. So those are machines that are able to take the tasks that we want to do. So they have our laundry and they're able to take it and do it for us while we can go sit on the couch. So we don't have to take our clothes down to the river and beat them with rocks anymore, right? So those are machines that we have built to help us with everyday chores. Another really fun example of a robot you might have in your house is we have Roombas or iRobots that can vacuum our floors for us now. So that's something really cool. You can see them kind of going around your house and figuring it out as they're cleaning up, and we don't have to do much of that work anymore. So some of the reasons we use those robots, like I said, is they are more convenient for us. So if it's something we don't want to do, like our chores, they can do it for us. But they're also a lot faster than we are and a lot stronger than we are. So in a lot of factories, we have robots that can help us to do assembly line processes in a way that we might not be able to. So if you think about us making cars, those car parts are really heavy and really big, and so machines can pick those up and robots can put them together in ways that are a lot easier than if we had to put a car together by hand every single day. We get pretty tired pretty fast. And I also said the robots are a lot faster than us. So if we think about water bottling facilities, those guys have to process millions of water bottles a day, and so a task like screwing the tops on water bottles may not be very difficult, but these robots are able to do thousands of them in a minute, whereas if we had to sit there and screw on every single bottle top, we'd get pretty bored of it pretty fast, and it'd be mentally draining for us. And so we've designed those robots to do some of those tasks for us instead. But a lot of these robots are able to do these things because we program them to do this. So we don't just put a bunch of parts together and then it knows exactly what to do, right? We have to give it instructions. And so these robots have to be programmed using codes in order for them to understand what we need them to do. So coding is basically the computer language that these robots speak. And so when we want to give them instructions or give them commands, we have to code it into their programming, right? So the first robot that I kind of wanted to introduce you guys to here are our cubelets. So these guys are pretty cool because these guys kind of break coding down into like a really manageable and fun hands-on way. So the way that cubelets work are they're these individual little blocks here that are all magnetized, and each block has a different function. So we have our navy blue blocks right here. These guys are going to be our power sources. So you have to charge these up at night, and they have an on and off switch, and that's going to be what's powering our robots. So that's going to kind of make our robots go. And then the other cubes that we have all have their own functions as well. So we have our clearish white cubes. These are going to be action cubes. We've got these multicolored cubes here, which are our thinking cubes, and then we have our black cubes, which are our sensory cubes. So the way that it works basically is these sensory cubes are input cubes, so they're going to be taking in information from their surroundings. So it can be things like sensing the light or sensing motion, and it can also be a dial that we can switch so we can give it an input, and it's going to take that information and it's going to turn it into a number system. So it can kind of rank how bright it is and turn it from really bright into like a number 10 so that the other cubes can process it, because robots are going to function more on a number system rather than it's light or it's dark or it's warm or it's cold, right? So they function better on numbers. So these guys are going to take those inputs and turn them into numbers and pass them along our line down our robot. So they kind of work like our eyes and our ears for us as people. Then I said we have our colored cubes here, which are our thinking blocks. So these kind of take the inputs that these guys have picked up, and they're going to try to change them or manipulate them in some way. So our red ones are our reverse cubes. So if it's really bright and it's going to have a high number, the reverse cube is going to change it to a low number. And so you can do this for different reasons, and I'll kind of show you an example of when we might use some of those. But these ones are going to take the numbers and they're going to do some sort of change to it, some sort of computation to it to impact the information that it's been given. And then those are passed on to our final ones here, which are our action cubes. So those are our output cubes. So those are going to take the information that has been picked up from the surrounding environment, and it's going to do something with it. So it's going to move, or it's going to, so we've got our wheels here that can move our robot. We have some gears here that spin it. We also have an input of lights as well, so we can turn on lights, turn off lights, and stuff like that. So putting all of these components together is kind of how we're going to make a robot. So I have some examples of some robots already built here, so I can kind of show you how some of these work. So like I said, in order to have a complete robot, you're going to have one of each of these components pretty much. One that you might be able to skip is our thinking one right here. So as long as you have power, input, and output, you'll be able to have a functioning robot. So you want power and a sense and an action. So for this one, we've got our power cube. Like I said, these navy blue cubes, we charge them by plugging them in, and then you can just switch them on. Then we're going to have our sensory cube here. So this is going to be sensing brightness, so it can pick up light, and that's going to be kind of, if it's light, it'll do one thing, if it's dark, it'll do a different thing. And then we're going to plug it into our light here. So for this one, it's going to be on right now because it's bright, and if it was dark, it would be off. So it's kind of like a little rudimentary flashlight here. And so for this one, like I said, when it's light in the room, it turns on. When it's dark in the room, it turns off. So if you really wanted a flashlight, that might not be the best way to have it. Obviously, if it was dark, is when you would need the flashlight. So if we put a reverse cube in there, it's going to help do it the opposite. Maybe. So when it's bright, it'll be off, and then when it's dark, it'll be on. So that reverse cube just changes that input, so that it's more of a functioning flashlight than one that's off when it's dark in the room. So another cool robot we built here. So this one was built by using our power cube, like I said. So we have our power source as our navy cube. We have our first action cube, which is our wheels. We have another action cube up here, which is a light. We have our sensor here, which is going to sense movement, so it's going to know if there's something in front of it. And then this one right here is just a passive cube, and it just kind of helps balance it out, but it doesn't really do anything. That's why we call it passive, so it doesn't have an actual function. It's just kind of there hanging out to make the robot more balanced. So when we turn this guy on, he should be able to move for us. Or not. Okay, maybe he won't move for us. Oh, there he goes. So this guy is supposed to be a lookout. That's what he's named after. So if he were to be sitting in your doorway and he sees somebody coming in, he would chase after them and scare them away. So if the light comes on and the wheels are going to move towards the object and our lookout bot. Let's see what else we got. I think this guy is just the opposite of that one. Let's see if we can get him to do anything. Yeah, so this is our scaredy bot. So basically he's got his power source, his passive, his wheels, and his sensor. So this one is just going to run away from anything it comes in contact with, right? And another cool one, we've got our lighthouse here. And so this guy is going to work. His sensor is a manual input, so we're going to control if he's on or he's off. So if I turned him down all the way, he'd turn off. If I turn him up all the way, he's going to spin, and he's also got a light on there as well. So these are all different robots that you can build using our cubelets. So we have a bunch of printouts of the ways that these guys are put together, so you know exactly how to make all of these robots. So if you did come into the center and want to play around with these guys, we do have guides that kind of show you different things that you can build. And then the last one, let's see if we can get this guy to work. So this guy works by steering, so you can kind of steer him the different ways you want him to go using those sensors. So if you want him to turn this way, or you can get him to turn that way using your hands and those sensors. But yeah, like I said, all of these are designated on these cards here, so you can build any of these right at your own home. So this is an example of one of the robots that we have here. Like I said, these guys are called cubelets, and another really cool thing about them is that it kind of shows you sort of how coding works. So you have to put in all these different components in order to make the robot functioning, right? So another robot that we have here that also works by optimizing things like these sensors is our Autobots. So these guys are different robots, and these guys are programmed to follow lines. And so we are able to control them by giving them different lines for them to follow. So the way that they're able to follow these lines is they are equipped with sensors on the bottom of them, so those sensors can pick up changes in light, so they know if they're looking at a blank sheet of paper or a blank sheet of paper that now has a line in it, they can tell the difference. And they're also able to pick up on color, so they're able to tell if they're on a red line versus a blue line versus a black line. So their main function that they're programmed to do is to follow those lines. So if we were to put him on a line here, he's going to go ahead and follow that line, and he's going to zigzag along with it as it's going around that little line that we drew for them. But then, like I said, these guys are also able to pick up on color. So if we were to change the color of the line underneath him, he would know, and he'd indicate it with his light on top, just like that. So as he goes to these different colored lines, he's going to show that he can pick up on those different colors that he's traveling on. So like I said, the main thing they're programmed to do is to follow those lines, but since they are able to pick up on colors, we're able to give them special commands by giving them codes in color form. So instead of giving them number commands, we give them different color patterns, and they're able to pick up on what that means. So I'm going to let this guy go on here real quick, and I'm going to kind of show you some of the things that our robots can do with special codes. And so these guys come with this cool sheet right here, and so these all have special commands that you can try and get your robot to do. So if you wanted to put him right onto this page right here, he can do that too. So if you put him on, he'll read those codes and he'll do a special move. So that was his spin move. But you can also recreate these moves on your own paper here. So if I put him on this track, he's going to follow the black line, read the code, and then he's going to do the action. So this is his tornado move. You can see he spun around. He's got another action right here. I'll try it out. And that's his zigzag move, so he'll zig back and forth. And then for our last one down here, this is called his back walk. So he turns around and does a little squiggle backwards as well. So these codes are pretty cool because you can see the different things that these guys have programmed in them. So obviously I didn't have to tell him what that meant. He already knew what that meant. And I just had to give him the right signal to do that move, and he's already got it in his little programming there. So that's something pretty cool, but when you are working with Autobots, one of the things that gets a little tricky is that they like really specific lines. So if you draw your line too thin, sometimes they don't pick it up. So you want to make nice clear lines, and then when you draw their codes, you have to draw them just like this. So if you draw them all elongated or squiggly, sometimes it's harder for them to read. So making sure that you're communicating in the way that the robot can perceive is definitely your best bet for a successful Autobot trial. But yeah, so like I said, these are our Autobots. They're programmed to follow those lines and those colors based on these sensors underneath them. So we do have robots in the real world that kind of follow the same technology, where they are going to be following lines that are painted on the floor. We see that usually when it comes to delivery robots, so robots that need to move things from one side of the factory to another are going to utilize technology like this. There's also robots that deliver things in hospitals, like they'll take food trays to different rooms using this kind of technology, where they'll kind of read the floor, and the floor is going to direct them where to go. All right, stop this guy right here. So these guys, they are able to kind of do things automatically, right? So I didn't have to sit there and tell him every single thing I wanted him to do. I just kind of turn him on, and he follows his own programming. He knows what to do, so I don't have to say, do this, do this, do this. I just turn him on, and he's going to follow that programming. So that's one way to kind of control your robots, is to kind of give them the directions in code. Another way to control robots is with a remote control. So some of our robots are going to be more directly controlled by us. So I'm going to kind of set up a little track for myself here, because these robots can be pretty fast and they'll fly all over the room if I let them. So these guys are our Spiros. So they are Spiro Minis, so they're pretty small little robots here. But like I said, they are pretty fast, and these guys work by remote control. So I've got two here, and basically the way that these guys like to go, once you've started your program up, it's going to pick a robot and connect to it, and then that's going to be how it's going to control it. So usually giving them a couple options is your best way to go about doing it. So you'll bring your iPad, which is what the program's downloaded on, near your box of Spiros, and it's kind of going to decide which robot it wants to use. So right now it's scanning the room looking for robots, and the one that it chooses will light up. So it's chosen this one right here, so I'll move this guy to the side. And so what it's going to do is it's going to give you the ability to calibrate your robot. So that's something that's really important, so that what you are looking at and what the robot things you're looking at are the same, so it knows what left is and what right is. So for this guy, he's going to allow you to calibrate him by moving this light to yourself. And then it gives you the option to drive your robot. So there's a couple different ways to drive. This one's the most straightforward, so basically if I move up, the robot moves up. If I go to the side, the robot goes to the side. But there's some other cool ones that you can play with as well. So we have our slingshot one here. So that kind of works like you'd imagine a slingshot too. You pull it back, and then when you release it, it fires in one direction or the other, right? And then we also have one that we use a lot for our family science night. So this is our face drive. And so basically what it does is it can read your face and your facial expressions, and that's going to help it to steer your robot here. So once your face is in the circle there, if you were to tilt your head, it'll move it from side to side, or it won't. There it goes. And so it moves itself left and right based on how you're tilting your head. But to move it forward and backwards, you have to smile or frown, and so that can be kind of tricky to really control your face like that. But that's a fun one that we like to play, bring to schools, and see the kids make all the funny faces to try and drive the robots. But yeah, so those are basic ways that you can control the robot. So that's like a remote control kind of example. So instead of just turning him on, I turn him on, and I also give him directions with my controller here. So some robots work like that as well. So the other thing that's kind of cool about Spheros that we don't do as often is games. And so there's lots of games on here that you can play with our Spheros as well if you were interested in doing that when you came in and we had our robots out. And the thing that's kind of different about this is instead of you controlling the robot with your iPad, you're actually going to control the games on the iPad with your Sphero as your controller. So if I were to start a game, I would have to move my robot to control where he goes. So your robot is now your controller, and your iPad is your game, rather than your iPad being the controller and the Sphero being the game. Yeah, so you just move it around to move your robot, to move your player here. But that's another way that we play with our Spheros. But yeah, we've got a couple other robots that we haven't brought out today. So if you aren't interested in any of these robots, we do have other examples. We have Dash as well, who's a nice big robot who can do a lot of cool things. He's got some voice control options. He has like lighting things that he can do. He has a catapult that attaches to him, so he's pretty cool as well. So if we do ever have a robot spectacular day, it's definitely a fun day to come in here. But yeah, I don't think we have any questions, and I think this is all the robots that I'm bringing out today. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off with you guys. But I hope that you guys enjoyed hanging out